can't feel my back. It's been several months since I started doing rows and pull-ups, and I've rarely felt my lats or traps working. I've tried all the gimmicks, getting a super deep stretch, really squeezing my back super tight every rep, and keeping my form perfect. I pull the weight with my elbows until I can't, but all I feel is my forearms from holding the weight. What am I doing wrong?
This is a real common situation, even for experienced people, including myself. I barely felt anything in my back, but guess what? My back still grew as I got stronger. So the first key takeaway is that feeling a muscle is not required for it to grow to a decent amount. If you have decent form and train really hard, you get most of your bases covered. But don't mistake this for the mind-muscle connection being useless. I used to downplay the mind-muscle connection, but by making the key tweaks I'm going to show you in this video, I've finally been able to connect with muscles I couldn't even fathom feeling and got cleaner and better form as a result. As a disclaimer, I'm not yet an expert on this, I'm still learning and applying, but it's your choice to give this a shot, and I guarantee it will be worth it. Let's get into it. I simply define the mind-muscle connection as being able to feel and engage the target muscle as if you're commanding that muscle to contract and lengthen. How much you feel a muscle has to do with three main factors: your pre-fatigue, workout density, as well as your technique. If you're doing a session more fatigued/sore in the muscles, you'll feel them. Higher reps and lower rest times will also make you feel your muscles more, but neither of these two are really productive to muscle growth. You want to be able to put a lot of tension on the muscles and feel them even at lower reps and longer rest times. So what we will be focusing on is our technique. There will be some movements where it's harder to feel a muscle. For example, on preacher curls, no matter how good your form is, because of the mechanics of the lift, there's no tension on the peak contraction, and when your biceps are lengthened, they're still shortened at the shoulder. Not much can be done to feel the biceps here, but this is a very specific case. The upper body muscles around the rib cage are significantly harder to find a mind-muscle connection than muscles like your arms because their technique is far more complicated. There's many more variables at play. These variables that you gotta take care of are your rib and hip position, what you are doing with your scapula, and your breathing strategy. And all of these things link together to allow you to drive tension where you want. Now I'll show you ways to improve your technique and posturing during exercises to finally really start feeling those muscles. Spoilers, you're probably not gonna like them. All beginners are told to keep a neutral spine / keep their back straight. It's like the most common piece of advice given. This gets challenged a bit nowadays, but there's underrated value in this advice. The main issue being that most people get it wrong. Like if you think this is a good back position, then you got some learning to do. First, some vocabulary. Concentric is the lift, eccentric is the lowering. I'll start with explaining how to do it, then I'll explain why. I don't exactly mean keeping a neutral spine, more so keeping a neutral rib cage that isn't compressing or orienting, as well as a mostly neutral pelvis. This is called keeping a stack. In this position, your spine can be in extension, but it should not be hyperextended or flexed. This is full extension. On almost all of your movements, you want to focus on keeping a stack using your obliques and deep ab muscles in order to keep your ribs down. Do this the entire movement, almost no exceptions. No matter if you're just slightly sacrificing your stack for more range of motion, don't do it. Keep the stack the entire time. This means having a flat back, no arching / puffing up your chest, nor purposely rounding your back. Another sign you're losing the stack is if it feels like your collarbone is elevating towards your chin. Then on the eccentric, you want to inhale deep, feeling your ribcage expand 360. Then you want to exhale on the concentric hard and fast, really feeling your obliques and deep abs keeping your ribs down. Now there are more specific details to each movement which I must cover. With the chest press, aside from your flat posture, you want to focus on scapular depression, not scapular retraction. This will also by default tuck your elbows and extend your spine as much as it needs so you don't have to think about it. On the eccentric, you may not be able to go down all the way while maintaining your stacked posture. This is okay. That's the maximum stretch for you. If you struggle maintaining a stack, some options you can try are putting your feet up on the bench like a Larson press and lifting your head up off the bench slightly. Lastly, on the concentric, you want to focus on allowing your scapula to protract, which will fully contract your chest. With back movements, it will depend on what you're trying to target. On the eccentric, you always want to let your scapula go forward or up as much as it can without losing your stack. Then on the concentric, pull back with your elbows and focus on either of these things. If you want to target more lats, focus on scapular depression as you pull, really driving your shoulders down. If you want to target more upper back, focus on scapular retraction as you pull. If you want to target more rear delts, keep your scapula more protracted as you pull. The angle you pull also matters. More tucked elbows will emphasize lats, and more flared will emphasize the upper back. Rear delts are also more active at around 45 degrees. One common mistake with back movements I'd like to point out is a lot of people do what's called meeting the bar, which is actually just shortening the range of motion, making the movement less effective for more weight. Try not to do that. If you use a bit of momentum, you can use your torso on the concentric, but don't try to jerk it back down. With a lot of lifts, in order to emphasize the stretching of muscles, we've been told to break this golden rule of keeping our stack. We want to have a stack for most exercises in order to maintain what's called intra-abdominal pressure and intrathoracic pressure. What this allows us to do is to keep tension on the muscle by minimizing involvement in other structures, as well as allowing the most expansion of our rib cage during inhalation. What this expansion of the rib cage will do is place the most stretch tension on the muscle surrounding it, so our chest, back, etc. How does this put the most stretch tension on the muscles? If, for example, I puff my chest up and retract my shoulder blades, doesn't that by default put more stretch on my chest? That would be true, but stretching a muscle isn't as simple as getting the most distance from point A to point B. Muscles don't stretch the same across all fibers. You have to take into account the shape of your skeleton underneath, and that's the dirty secret that makes your muscles around the ribcage so tricky to target. By puffing your chest, you end up compressing your ribcage and losing volume on it, making it harder to expand on the inhale, resulting in actually less stretch tension on your chest. You can picture it like a water bottle. If you compress it at one end, then sure, the ends will have more tension, but now there's this missing space here which cannot effectively volumize since you're stuck in this compression. This similar logic can apply to your back. Some people on cable rows may try compressing their ribs forward to get their scapulas more forward, when all this is doing is diverting tension to your skeleton and actually taking away stretch on your back. Plus, when people do this, they compress their rib cage in the opposite direction on the way up to emphasize a squeeze, which is just shortening the range of motion. More range of motion the bar travels does not automatically mean more stretch on the muscles. That's too simplified of a way to look at things. What you should do is use the max range of motion your body allows without compensating. It's totally fine in a muscle building context. Many great bodybuilders do it. There's a reason for it. It's not cheating, half repping, none of that. It's just using the most productive range of motion for you. That's about all. So to recap, focus on keeping your ribs stacked as your #1 priority during almost all of your upper body exercises. This means no hyperextension or flexion allowed. Do a deep inhale on the eccentric, feeling ribcage expansion, and forcefully exhale on the concentric, feeling core tension. For chest, keep your back flat, keep your shoulders depressed and not retracted. For back, you want to drive shoulder depression for lats, shoulder retraction for upper back, and slight protraction for rear delts. Hope you found this helpful. If you want me to make you a personalized program that's best fit for you, we can have a chat, man, with the first link in the description. If you like this breakdown of better technique, the next video I would recommend is my video on fixing up your training split too, so you have both the planning and execution down.